Here is part 2 of phrases, cadences, and periods. And let's start with a quick review of part 1. So what's a phrase? In our last one we discussed how a phrase needs to be a significant musical idea. It can't just be one note or just a couple of notes. It really needs to be a few measures where you have a melody, you have some supporting rhythm or harmony, and some kind of harmonic goal. I think it would also be safe to say that if you are thinking in terms of phrases, that's kind of how you would think about the musical shape, and also it would be a place where you would probably want to sneak in a breath. If you're a singer or a woodwind or brass player, you know how important it is to know where to take breaths. If you're a violinist, you just keep bowing, but if you don't know about phrasing, you don't know where to make those shapes and where you would sneak in a breath as like a singer or a woodwind or brass player would. A cadence, of course, a cadence is a harmonic goal, right? Phrases all have harmonic goals at the end. We see them try to get to a harmony, and the harmonic goal is the cadence. Now, last time we talked about 3 different cadence types, and while you're thinking, you can think about that. Let's go ahead and, if you want to pause and try to remember our 3 cadence types. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and list them up here. Half cadence. A half cadence is when the harmonic goal is 5. So any type of phrase that goes and we get to the end of the phrase and we land on a 5 chord, that would be a harmonic goal. Sometimes we see a cadence get to cadential 6/4 and then 5, right? That's why we call it cadential 6/4s, because we usually see it as we approach the cadence. Other types of cadences. We have the imperfect authentic cadence and the perfect authentic cadence. And the difference between these two, the imperfect authentic cadence is either a 5/1 or sometimes a 7/1. That's what we see that. To be perfect though, you've got to fit the 3 criteria. Criteria 1, it's got to end in do in the melody. End on do in the melody. It must be a 5/1, and it must be root position with so-do in the bass. So if anything is an inversion, it's not a perfect authentic cadence. If it's not 5/1, it's not an authentic cadence. So these are our 3 cadence types. We also talked about period structures. And remember, a period structure, we have an antecedent phrase, which has a weaker cadence, and a consequent phrase that has a stronger cadence. If it is an A, B, we call it a contrasting period, and if it's A prime, we call it a parallel period. So these are our period structures. Now, getting back to what we were just looking at, in the first one we talked about, we just labeled A's and B's, we found our half cadence and authentic cadences. Some of these authentic cadences we could go back and label them as perfect authentic cadence, since they had so-do in the bass, that kind of thing. And then we found some examples of some period structures where we had that sort of question and answer. So anyway, that was all on page 51. Let's go ahead to page 52. And let's do some more Mozart. So I'm going to play this for you, this whole thing, and I will play it twice. And why don't you, after you hear it a couple of times, go ahead and pause and see if you can diagram the phrases and cadences. So for phrases, we want to put A, B, A prime, B prime, A, B, C, D, whatever, always lowercase. And then for the cadences, it'll be either half cadence, perfect authentic, or imperfect authentic cadence. One more time. This is a good time to pause and go ahead and do your diagram, and then unpause when you're ready. Okay, I'm going to use my singing and stealing a breath test and figure out a good spot. Da, 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 ooh, I like that spot. Ooh, that's another good spot. And we keep going. I think I would want to sneak in a breath after all of this. We could make a case for a breath here, but the bass hasn't moved. We just have one long bass, and I feel like that hasn't really given us much of a harmonic motion. So I'm going to go ahead and give the last several bars here. So let's label this one A, lowercase a. And this one feels pretty different from the first one. It's got a few similarities, but let's go ahead and call this B. And then this one's totally different. Da, 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 da. So we'll call this one C. So each of our phrases is contrasting from the last. Well, now we need to find harmonic goals. This was our first harmonic goal. We're in the key of E flat, and we ended on E flat D F. 5 for a half cadence. And then this one here, we have so, do, we end on line, we have mi, re, do. This is PAC. This one's fancy though because it gives us cadential 6/4 and then slowly brings in each one of the right notes so we don't get our 5, 7 until the very end. I'll play you this cadence right here. It's got an appoggiatura, it's got the passing neighbor 7, it's got all kinds of things going on. There's our cadential 6/4, cadential 6/4, and now, right, so it takes us a while to get to all of that stuff and get from 5 to 1. And then it looks like we have another cadential 6/4 here to 5 on our last one. So this one ends on 5, this one ends on a half cadence. So now if you wanted, I think we could make a case that the first phrase and the second phrase is a period structure, right? The half cadence here is a weaker cadence. This one here is stronger. Felt like this one kind of answered that one. Let's go on to, let's get more practice. Let's look at a few more of these. Let's look at some Beethoven. So same thing, I'll play this, and you go ahead and based on 2 listens, see if you can come up with a good form diagram of our phrases and cadences. Go ahead and pause if you need. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and figure this one out. So, from the beginning. That's where I would take my breath, is after this. Mi, so, do, re, so. So there are 2 phrases. Looks like this one goes da 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 da. We'll call that an A. This one goes da 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 da. Different tune, so we'll call this one a B. And let's look at harmonic goals. So this is A flat major. And when we get here, this is E flat, G, B flat, which is Roman numeral 5. So this is a half cadence. And then when we get to the end, so by the way, don't be fooled. We have 2 bass clefs when you're doing your analysis. This one goes na 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 na. This one's a hard cadence to figure out. But here's our so, do. One of the reasons it's so difficult is we have all of these non-chord tones when we resolve to do. So eventually they're all right here. There's our one. But check it out, we have a D flat, comes from the same note, resolves down. There's a suspension. Da, 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 from the same note and it resolves up. So we have a suspension and a retardation on the same one. And da 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 da, jump to the wrong note, too high, and then back to the right one. So the whole thing is non-chord tones with a suspension, a retardation, and an appoggiatura. This one comes from the same note, and then the D flat resolves down to C. This one comes from the same note, but the G resolves up to A flat. This one jumps too high to B flat, and then comes back down to A flat. So it's pretty tricky to find all those notes, but we do get, in fact, get a so do. I promise I won't put a cadence as difficult as this one on the test. But here we have a perfect authentic cadence. This is a great example of a period structure. Weaker cadence, followed by a strong cadence. How are you? Are you feeling fine today? I'm fine, thanks for asking. Blah, 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 go away. That's how that one goes. So we had our question and our answer, our antecedent, consequent. This is definitely an example of a contrasting period. Let's do some more. If we keep looking at more and more of these, it's going to make more sense, get more practice. Let's go to page 53. Sorry, we'll skip that bottom Beethoven. And do some Mendelssohn. Mendelssohn is a Romantic composer, and so he's got a little bit more, sometimes some more shape and accidentals in his music. Lieder ohne Wort, songs without words. This is from his Songs Without Words. I'm going to play this, and after you're done listening, see if you can do a little analysis of our phrases. I will play it again. So if you need to, go ahead and pause, and then when you think you've got a good diagram, unpause and we'll see how we did. So singing breath, steel breath test. had 4 phrases. And let's take a look at the letters we're going to use. Then we get a new melody. So we'll call this A and B. Now check this out. This one is really similar to the first one. It starts the same, da, 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 then it jumps up, da. This one jumped up, this one jumps up higher, da, and then it has the same rhythm, da, 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 da. So same opening notes, same jumps, same rhythm. Let's call this one A prime. This one is definitely based on the original. Now look at this one. This one is almost identical, almost. You'll see a few notes that are just a little different, almost identical to that one. We're going to call this B prime. So here we have an A and a B, then we hear an A prime and a B prime, because these come from that one. Well, let's find our harmonic goals. We're in E major. This one here ends on cadential 6, 4, and 5. I'll give you a tip off. Anytime a phrase ends on re, that's always a half cadence, because re needs to resolve to do, and it didn't quite get there. So Rays are always going to be half cadences, and here it is. There's our 5 chord right there. And then dum ba da 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 da. Here is so, do in the bass. And we have mi, re, do in the soprano. Do in the soprano, so do in the bass. This is a PAC. Now, this next cadence is mean. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you that this cadence isn't in E major. This is IAC in F sharp minor. So, and again, I won't put anything that mean on the exam, but this Mendelssohn decided to have a little cadence in a different key to kind of pull it into a darker direction. He kind of briefly went to minor, and then he's going to move back. Da 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 da, and there it is, so do again, and mi, re, do. So there is our PAC. So I think we can agree, weaker cadence, stronger cadence, weaker cadence, stronger cadence. So we have 2 period structures on this one. Let's keep going. Let's look at some Bach. Go ahead and pause, and then when you're ready, we'll do this one. This is where I'd sneak in a breath after re. Do-ti-do. I've got 2 phrases for this one. an A, and an A prime. We can see that even though this one ends a little different, it's definitely coming from the first one. This one, our harmonic goal is 5 in the key of G minor. And this one we have 5, 1 in the key of G minor. Dum, da, da, dum, bum, 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 ba, da, do, ti, do. And here's our so, do in the bass, and here's do in the soprano. So half cadence. And then over here, here's our piece. One of the things that I want to point out is that this use of half and stronger and weaker and stronger cadences was done on purpose, right? When we get to something like Re, we're really waiting for the resolution, and we finally get it here. So what happens at the end of bar 4, we're waiting to resolve, and that finally happens at the end of bar 8, right? So we have sort of that cognitive tension of waiting for that first phrase, that harmonic goal, to go to the next one. Weaker cadence, stronger cadence, A prime. This is a good example of a parallel period. Since it's an A prime, weaker, stronger. Let's take a quick look at a few more. Page 54. And I'm not going to play this one because I'll mess it up. So I'm going to get my good pal Emmanuel Axe to play it. And let's start it from the beginning. And let's stop there. All right. So yeah, we're just going to go up to this spot. Well, let's give it another listen, and then pause and give me your analysis. Well, I thought I played that from the beginning. So go ahead, pause, and see if you can figure out the phrases. Well, I'm going to do the where would I sneak in a breath. Now obviously there are a lot of places to breathe. There's plenty of breaths. But where would I sneak one in if I didn't have a spot to breathe? So let's see here. Da-da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I think I would sneak one in there, da-da-dum, because then I restart, da-da-da-da-dum, right? The restart is the tip-off. Anytime you get a restart, that usually means it's the end of the last phrase. Da-da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-dum. What should I call this one? You'll notice that it looks very similar to the first one. Da-da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-da-dum. This one starts the same. Da-da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-da-dum, and then has the same rhythm after that. Da-da-da-da-dum. I think we can safely call this one an A prime. Then, this is a. So we've got an A prime, and a B. Now, let's figure out the harmonic goal. This is in the key of E flat. And here we end on D, F, A flat. This is Roman numeral 7 in first inversion. Can a harmonic goal be 7 in first inversion? I guess so, because Haydn did it. So what will we call this? Half cadence. Remember, a 7 can be a substitute for 5. And seeing a 7 in first inversion, that's a great substitute for a 5 chord. Now let's look at the next one. Here's our next harmonic goal. E flat, G, B flat. And although it's kind of tricky, here is our 5, 1. So we have 5, 1, but we have them in inversion. Since we don't have a root position 5, 1, we don't have a so-do, this is our IAC. And then lastly, and here we have so, do, so, do. There's our so, do, and T, do in the soprano. So we end with A, P, C. This is an example of a 3-phrase period. We have our weakest cadence, then a slightly stronger one, but still weak, and then we have a strong cadence at the end. So 3-phrase periods don't have to be exactly like this with weak, stronger, strongest. But this is a good example, the half cadence, the imperfect. And of course, we have a parallel structure at the beginning for our antecedents, right? We have 2 antecedent phrases. The first one and the second one are parallel antecedents, but then we have a contrasting consequent. So it's just, there's lots of ways that we can see phrase structures and what composers can do with them. We got one more. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Schumann. And again, I don't want to play this one. This has got too many big notes. And also, why don't we have the Berlin Philharmonic with James Levine do it? This one, and then unpause when you're ready. I'm going to do my singing test with my sneak of breath. Put it right here. And this is in, there's my little letter A. This one's in D minor. And when we get here, it looks like my harmonic goal is 5. So that means we have a half cadence. Then, dun 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 dun. And here we have cadential 6/4, 5/7, 1. With so, do in the bass, and do in the soprano. So this is our PAC. Another example of a period structure, weaker cadence followed by a stronger one. And check it out. I think we can call this first one da da a da 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 da. This one starts almost exactly the same, just up higher. It's almost the exact same notes, just up transposed. So we will call this one A prime. So this is another example of a parallel period with an A prime, the antecedent weaker and the consequent stronger. The phrases and cadences I put on the exam will not be tricky. They'll be pretty straightforward. I just want to see if you understand the terminology and know about where to look for the starts and ends of phrases and label the A's and B's and A primes and stuff like that. All right, thanks.